Hello and welcome to the third episode of Searching for Peace with me, Virginia Pond. This is a podcast of how ordinary people have come to find peace in their lives. Our interview today is with Andrea Enright. Andrea and her husband, BJ, had been married for 3 years when he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Even though the doctors were very hopeful of him going into remission, after 9 months of fighting for his life, BJ unexpectedly passed away. Andrea found herself a widow at the age of 24. With the 4-year anniversary of BJ's death looming, Andrea reflects on what has helped her move with the grief. This is the story of how Andrea is finding peace with her grief and how you can too. Andrea, how are you?
Hi, Virginia. I am having a really good day.
Good. I'm glad that you're having a really good day. It's been a long time since we've talked. And I know that you're in school right now. What are you going to school for?
Okay, so today was my very first day of grad school. You probably remember I have my undergraduate degree in musical theater. I'm actually going back to school to become an elementary school general education teacher.
So what kind of drew you to pull everything back and then go back to education?
It's been such an interesting journey. You know, when BJ, my husband, died, it just was like starting from scratch. I was an actor. I was disillusioned with the business of professional theater, and I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go. When my husband was alive, I was going to have children, be a mom. So when he died, I grieved and take time and just spent, a long time just, healing and slowly just trying to feel normal again. And when I finally was able to get back in the workforce, I ended up in an elementary school, and I've been working in elementary schools now for the past 3 years as a substitute, as an aide, as a secretary, lots of different roles. And it just became just blatantly clear that teaching helps me use all these gifts. I love education, I love performing and singing and writing, and I love books, and I really love math, which a lot of people don't think. They think, oh, actor, writer. But I love math and teaching numeracy. So it's just been the most creative, joyful place is being in an elementary school classroom. And I just feel like just so tickled that it has all come to this point. So I'm excited to start.
Exciting. That's really exciting. So since we kind of touched on the subject, how did you and BJ meet?
Oh, yeah. We met back when I actually was in boarding school for the fine arts my senior year of high school. And I was a senior. He was like a residence hall counselor for my dorm at our building, and we were friends. And then he worked at the summer camp of the boarding school, then I worked at the summer camp, and I had a big crush on him. Never went anywhere because we have about a 5-year age gap, and he was like, she was just a student. And so we just kind of really became really good friends, and we stayed in touch when I went off to college in Ohio, and really became best friends and had this just really strong, deep friendship. And then he ended up moving out to Portland, where I'm from, where my family lives, and from there he was in closer proximity. Then our relationship finally had a chance, and we fell in love and got married pretty soon after. I got married between my junior and senior year of college.
Did he really get to know your family? From what it sounded like, he became integrated in a part of your family.
Yes, totally. Well, what was so interesting is I was in Ohio going to school. I was a sophomore when BJ moved to Portland, so he didn't know anyone in Portland. So my family started having him over for dinner all the time. He was going to church with my family, and then my family always goes out to Chinese food after church. They did that a lot, and so they were always bringing him over. And so, I would call BJ, and he'd be like, oh, I'm hanging out with your mom. I'm like, what? You're living my life. That was such a beautiful part of our relationship, is that he really had a unique relationship with everyone in my family, my sister, my brother, my mom, my dad, even my grandma, my aunt. He actually started working as a substitute teacher in Oregon, and he would sub for my aunt who worked in Sherwood. And so what was so amazing is he had individual relationships with everyone in my family, and he was truly a son. I remember my mom and dad when we were dating, I think it was my dad who said, we really like BJ, don't mess this up. They wanted me to marry him, and so.
Yeah. So it's like no pressure, right? Like no pressure, don't mess this up.
It ended up working out, but yeah, he was so loved by my family.
after you guys got married and after you graduated from school, kind of what happened from there? You guys moved to New York, right?
Yeah, my part of my senior year as a theater major was doing an internship in New York City, and so we were married at the time, so we just took it, we're young, let's just go and move and go for it. So he moved. He was just kind of like a emerging photographer, and I was just finishing up school and doing this internship, and we just loved New York City. His career totally took off as a photographer. He started doing a bunch of engagements, photos, and wedding photos, and family photography, and he just really thrived in the city. We loved New York City, and we were pretty quickly got involved with like a small church there and made friendships there, and felt really just a part of this rich community.
So kind of tell me the length of time of when you found out that he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma.
So we moved in 2012 to New York City in the winter. I was kind of the typical struggling artist, going to auditions, going to open calls, doing nonprofit theater, free theater, original works, whatever I could, and nannying, babysitting while he was working. We did that for about 2 years, and in June of 2015, we got the diagnosis that he had Hodgkin's lymphoma. And what we were told all along is that, it's a good cancer, you hit the cancer jackpot. Like, there's no cancer jackpot. Cancer is just terrible and sad and devastating and tough. And so it just was kind of silly that people were telling us that, but I don't know, maybe that's what we needed for the time because we had a lot of hope. So he only had lymphoma for a year. He was diagnosed June of 2014 and he died June of 2015. I mean, it was just a year. We did chemo for the first 6 months. Most people with his type of cancer, that does it for them. They go in remission and they're fine till the day they die. But for him, he was one of the unlucky few that didn't respond to that first round of chemo. We were doing some experimental drug trial program. Body didn't react very well to that. But all the while, so this was the spring, the few months right up until he died, we just had hope. It's just ironic because people think, oh, cancer, oh, your husband died of cancer. They assume it's terminal, and I knew it was coming, but it just sounds dumb, but we never talked about him dying. Not even once it crossed our minds. It was always, we're going to make it through it. We're going to look back on this, and we're going to tell our kids how hard this was, but look, we're here, and we just clung to that. We held on to that, and we believed it. And even when he died, I mean, he was feeling great up until 2-3 weeks before he died, and he didn't even, it's a little murky how he died, which is tricky in itself. He died, we think, from surgical complications, septic shock related to a surgery he had, trying to drain fluid from his lungs and heart as the tumor was just kind of taking over his body. And even a day or two before he died, a doctor was telling us, oh, he'll live till he's 80, we're going to kick this. And then he kind of went into surgery Thursday and then never recovered. He died Friday morning, and it was tough. It was shocking. I didn't think he was going to die. It had never crossed my mind. And I didn't get to say goodbye because I left for rehearsal Thursday morning. He went in for surgery. My mom was there with him as he came back from surgery. He was still not lucid. He was still out from surgery. I came back from rehearsal. One small blessing, because, it's just amazing the small blessings you find amidst tragedy. I find that there's still little things you can be grateful for. So one small blessing is that Thursday night he died on the Friday morning, like I said, I was supposed to go home to sleep in my own bed, but something in my spirit was just stay. Andrea, stay. And so I just slept on this weird chair with a random blanket, kind of nuzzled. Just felt like I should stay. And then I actually woke up at maybe 5 a.m. to the sound of BJ saying my voice, Andrea. I woke up and, I went to him. He was out cold. He wasn't lucid. He was breathing. He was alive, but he couldn't talk. And I just feel like that's the last thing I ever heard him say to me. And it was God, the Spirit, a dream, I don't know, but hearing him say my name, Andrea, and waking up, and just from that moment at 5 a.m., he died at 10:13 a.m. For those 5 hours, I was just over him, praying, and just knew, and somehow had strength. I just knew it was bad in those moments. Somehow, everyone's different when those kind of critical moments come, but I did feel somehow a peace or a strength, or else I don't know how I would have even survived that day.
People are telling you you'll be fine, like this is going to be all okay, and then you get what other people have like had months to be able to prepare for, or months to be able to mentally deal with in 5 hours.
I've never thought of it like that. So thank you, Virginia, for articulating that, because I think you just did something really good for me as a grieving person, which is like acknowledging my pain and trauma. I think that's the best thing you can do, supporting someone who's grieving, and just say, yeah, that's a hard thing, what you just did. Yeah, most people don't have a few hours to prepare for their husband's death. Some people have time to process, a sick parent. So thank you for that. But yet, I am grateful I had what little time I had to kind of prepare and to be with him, because some people don't get to be with their loved ones as he passed. And goodness, I don't know what, if I was home, I don't know what time I would have gotten there. Like, what if I wasn't there in the morning? I do feel a lot of gratitude that I was there when he died. I was holding his hand. I washed his body after he passed and kissed his head and got to at least have that moment.
You were able to still care for him.
Yeah.
Even if it was just even more for his body. And I know the crazy thing especially about a theater person, somebody who's working, is that you had a show that night.
What is just like, come on, like, are you kidding me? I wasn't even supposed to do this show, but it was a dream role, and I thought, it's just a month. It was literally like we rehearsed for 3 weeks and we're open for a weekend. It was just quick. So I was like, it'll be fine. He died Friday morning. Our opening night was that evening, opening night. And I think what went through my head, I texted my director, like I sent a text, no one should have to say, it's like, BJ died, but I'll be there tonight. And my director and team were so absolutely gracious and said, we will cancel, we will do whatever you need. We love you, we support you, like, what can we do? And I don't know what was going through my head. You kind of get that shock, adrenaline, and I just thought the only thing that's worse than him dying is him dying, and then also, like, it just ruining everyone else who's put all this time into this production, and me not being able to do this dream role I wanted to do. So I quite honestly, like, dug, after I said goodbye to his body, I went home, I slept for like 4 hours. Then I was just crying, couldn't even put my contacts in, put in glasses, took the subway down to Brooklyn and did the show. And in a strange way, it was like BJ wasn't going to be able to watch me do that performance, but I just felt like he got to see me. And it was one of the toughest things I've ever done, but I am glad I did it. And I did it the next night, but then by Sunday I was like, I'm sorry. And they were actually able to rehearse and get someone in for the performance on Sunday. But man, I just can't even believe I did that. It sounds crazy now, but at the time I was just like, I want to do this. I can't imagine. I don't know. I still quite haven't unpacked that. I maybe feel a little guilt, but also like I should have just been in bed crying. But that's the whole grief process, is you have to trust your gut and do what's good for you. Sometimes you need to push yourself. Sometimes you need to rest and be a hermit. And sometimes you need to be around people. And so in a way, I'm glad I was around people doing something I loved on the worst day of my life. I needed people to see me and to love me and to acknowledge the pain.
You went right into blogging.
Totally.
Right after he died.
Yeah.
You just shared all of it.
Yeah.
And because especially from like an outside observer, you and then another high school friend, both around the same time, had their husbands die of cancer. And young men, like we're not, you know what I mean? Young men die of cancer kind of around the same time. And so from somebody who's super like pulled back from the scenario, back from the situation, kind of being able to watch that. And then both of you opened up your heart and let us see. So what kind of inspired you or pushed you to kind of write and share your story directly after his passing?
Yeah, I think I already had a blog established, but I hadn't been writing it a lot. But a lot of it was just, it was so shocking and so unexpected. And writing was a way to just process my thoughts. And kind of on a public platform, I felt like it kind of allowed me maybe to explain how I was feeling or explain my behavior. That's what I love about writing is I feel like I can kind of, I don't know, defend myself or express myself or explain myself. But like going back and reading some of the things, I'm like, wow, it's really raw. But I just had no filter, and all I could do was write. It just seemed cathartic, and it helped. And you know, when I call it the worst thing that ever happened to me, you know, when the worst thing you can imagine happens to you, it kind of breaks you open from caring what people think. And it's just, I did what I wanted, and I wanted to share, and I needed to write, and I needed to get how I felt out. And you kind of lose the self-consciousness. Like, my husband just died. I don't care if you don't like me.
Yeah.
Your measure for what bothers you changes so much. And I just felt writing helped me process how I was feeling, and it gave a platform for people to respond and give feedback and encouragement, and it really was comforting in that season.
Especially for me, I'm not scared of death. Like, to be honest, like, I'm not scared of death. Death's never been anything that I've been afraid of. But I've also never really had to grieve for somebody. You know, the closest people that have died in my life have really been my grandparents. And so, like, people you expect to die, right? And so with your feelings and your emotions, really it was able to kind of help teach me these are kind of the emotions that you would feel, and that you're 100% allowed to feel whatever you feel in the moment. Yeah. One of the quotes I took from one of your blog posts was, "Friends, I'm grieving. Tomorrow I don't know how I feel. Grief is odd in that way. I may be numb again, or maybe angry, or I may be devastated. I don't know. Grief shifts and changes." And for me, that's kind of like the hardest part about grief, is that it just kind of flips-flops and changes forms in so many different aspects. So then how do you deal with that? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, that is so tough, and I think it's hard for us to just surrender to what your feelings are. You can't just keep it together. And if something bubbles up within you, you got to make space. If you're angry and thinking about how unjust it is, you've got to find some sort of healthy way to feel that like to its fullest, or else it's going to linger. If you just bury it or pretend it doesn't exist, that's going to erupt at some point. But the unpredictability of grief is one of the toughest things. And it was tough for me because some days what I needed is, I just want to go out and have fun and be in the sunshine and feel like a normal person. But then the very next day, it was just like, I need to be in bed with a sad song and a journal. And it took a lot to kind of really listen to myself and try to dig into that instead of ignore it, and trust what I needed, and be okay if I say one thing and it changes. If I'm out with someone having fun, trying to feel normal, and then I shift and it's too much for me, being able to say, hey, I need to be alone. That's sucks. It's tough. It makes it hard to function as a normal human. It's like you're going around with an invisible, gaping, bloody wound that no one can see.
It's amazing to me your willingness to feel the feelings. Because I am kind of an escape artist that way. Like, I don't want to feel my feelings. But you were just so willing to feel those and let us feel them with you and show us what you were feeling. What do you think made you kind of feel that open?
Yeah, I think I had unpacked a lot of emotion like a few years prior in individual counseling, couples counseling, and I really did a lot of like personal work on how to not be afraid of emotions and different emotions, and a lot of it came back to my faith and the Bible and kind of really working with a Christian counselor and being like, hey, Jesus wept. Jesus got angry and turned over tables. Jesus celebrated at a wedding. He was joyful. And then realizing emotions aren't inherently wrong, but when our emotions cause us to sin, that is wrong. But the act of feeling angry isn't intrinsically sinful. The act of being sad is not intrinsically sinful. And so it's okay to feel those things and to work through them, knowing that the Savior did too. And he felt lonely in the desert, and he felt isolated and unknown, and that's not bad in and of itself. It's what you do with those emotions. And I think that's also, I chose to write with those dark emotions, with my anger, with my sadness, with my fear, which I felt like was like a healthy way to go through that versus becoming bitter or being angry at other people or putting people down, or I don't know, other ways that these negative or darker emotions can sometimes turn into things that are hurtful and bad. My goal was to not let the darkness of my grief and the darkness of my loss bring more darkness into this world, because there's already enough things that suck. And I didn't want to add to the things that suck.
Well, and I think the biggest blog post that you wrote was your "Why Not Me" post. And I wasn't able to find the exact words, so I am going to be paraphrasing it a little bit. But basically you went through, somebody kind of said to you, why did this happen to you? Why did this happen to you? You're such a great person. You believe in Jesus and do all of these amazing things. Why did this happen to you? And you kind of clap back with, why not me? Does Heavenly Father love me less because he took away my husband? Does Heavenly Father not love me because he gave me this trial? Does he love you more because he didn't give you this trial? And then you even kind of go on a broader scale, kind of like globally with the world. Does he love these people in poverty less than he loves you? And so why would he not give me this trial? Because through this, I still know that he loves me.
I just remember, watching television or like a doctor show or ER show, and you see the woman sitting over the person who's about to die, and then they die, and then they sob, and it's horrifying. You're like, oh my gosh, that's so terrible. And then that literally happened to me. I was there in a hospital, and someone died in my arms, and I guess thinking about that made me think, well, yeah, why not me? Almost why, these things happen to people all over the world every second. There's trauma and tragedy and pain. And in that moment, I was kind of realizing these things happen to like real everyday people. Why not me? That language shift, because it's easy when you're going through a trial to say, why me? Why me? Oh, woe is me. Why is this coming? But like, why not me? I think I need to revisit those words as I've been, like lately I've been kind of giving myself a pity party because the grief is kind of resurfacing in a new way. And the anniversary of his death is coming up next week. And so that comes with it is a whole host of just big feelings and fears and trials and loss of children and spouses and parents and illnesses. They happen. And so I really am not unique in this. So how can I lean into God in those moments?
You posted this recently. So today is 1,426 days lived without, tandem to the 1,426 days lived with BJ. It is no coincidence the muse visited me today, prompting me to sit and feel and type slowly today. It is no coincidence that in my writing, this 1,426-day discovery is made. And so now I sit in the knowledge that I have grieved exactly 1 day for each day I was married, marriage and mourning in equal measure. And how was kind of your reaction to that day?
Yeah, that was an amazing discovery. I'm a big journaler, and I'm also a big numbers person. Like, I'm always somehow connecting to God through numbers, and just take a lot of comfort in that. And I was dreading the 4-year anniversary of his death because we were married for almost 4 years. And so I really feel like it was God that impressed on my heart, like, look up how many days it's been since he died. And I looked it up, and, you know, when I wrote that post, it was May 22nd. He had been dead exactly 1,426 days. And then I looked up another number, and I wanted to look up exactly how long we were married. The day we were married to the day he died, it was exactly 1,426 days. And in that, I've just been feeling like grief is just such a journey. And lately I've just felt dry and distant from God. And that day felt like a huge just reminder, like, hey, I'm still here. It was more than a coincidence. I believe 100% it was God that made me make that connection literally to the exact day. And I took such comfort in that, reminding that what happened to me was terrible, but God is with me and still sees me and still has a plan for me, and knew the day I was born, this was going to be a part of my story. Knew the day we got married, this was a part of my story. Knew the day he died that I was going to make this discovery 1,426 days later. God knew I was going to become a teacher and take all my trauma and my theater and my joy and my pain and my zest for life and my curiosity and bring it to the classroom where there's also kids who are suffering and in pain and dealing with trauma. And it's the culmination of my whole life leading up to this moment. So I do take comfort in feeling seen and known and not forgotten. Because it's easy in grief to feel just like, why me? I'm forgotten. But I believe wholeheartedly that if you look for those moments of God, if you look for those small blessings, if you look for those mini gratitudes, they are there. Even in the midst of trauma, even in the midst of the most painful thing you can imagine, there is always the love of the Father.
And that's normally my ending question is, you know, how have you found peace through what you've gone through? But you've really answered that. You were able to find tender mercies of the Father throughout your life. And it's so awesome to hear you say, I did not want to give myself to the grief. Because people do.
I totally get how people can, because it's destroying, it's devastating. The pain and the grief is overwhelming, and it's so easy to give in to the darkness of the pain. And it's so hard to resist. But there is a way to do it through, like you said, those tender mercies, those little gratitudes, community, doing things you love, having faith even in the darkness. There's a way through, because you're never really out of grief, but there is a way through.
So now that you're moving forward in your life with your 1,426 days after that anniversary, and then now with your 4-year anniversary coming up next week, what are the little things that you're able to celebrate?
Oh, goodness. It is such a journey. What I'm trying to do now, because it's still a process, is be really grateful for the time I had with BJ, for the time we did have, instead of the time I was robbed of. Trying to lean into the joy like my sisters do with the little baby boy. And we just all have a feeling he might decide to come June 26th, which was the day BJ died. I wonder, maybe he will or not. Babies come when they want to, but it would be very interesting if he came to this earth, the newest family member came the same day our dear family member left. So we'll see. And so I'm trying to lean into my family, faith, and the future. Having a career aspiration, finding this passion for teaching, that helped keep me going and have this vision for the future. Because when you can really get stuck in the past and stuck thinking about the good days in the past, it keeps you from creating the good days and the joy of the future. So I'm trying to stay in the present and also believing that there is joy for me in the future, even if I don't quite understand how it's going to play out, holding on to the belief that the joy and the sweetness is in the future for me as well, not just in my past.
Thank you so much today. So many amazing thoughts that you've been able to give us. Thank you for listening to the podcast, Searching for Peace. If you feel like you have a story to tell, how you have found peace through your trials, please contact us at Searching for Peace Podcast on Instagram and Searching for Peace Facebook page. Or you can email us at searchingforpeacepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you. Please like and subscribe.